If you are scared to tell your friends or family or anyone else about your preschool dream, this video is for you. Now, this was a question that came from Melissa. She says, I have a question about how to get started. I've been following you for 11 years. Yep, I said it. I still don't have the nerve to tell my family and friends about my amazing ideas or carry through with the steps to get the ball rolling. Melissa, oh my gosh, girl, you came at the perfect time, the perfect place. I know you've been following me for 11 years, but get this. Never before have I had the Phoenix Journey framework for you to walk through to overcome those fears and gain the confidence that you need to tell the people. So, friend, you're in the perfect place right now. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes, we just need things that have never been on the planet before. And the Phoenix Journey framework is one of those things that has never been on the planet before. So I'm pumped to be able to walk you through this. So let me tell you about what the Phoenix Journey framework is, right? And in fact, it's a brand new podcast that I just launched last week. And in fact, we're trying to get it to the top charts of Apple. So let me show you how you can find it. And then we're going to dive into where the Phoenix Journey framework is going to help you, okay? So here's how you can follow the podcast. Now, we have a podcast called Preschool All Stars, right? But we just launched a new podcast because here's what happened. I realized that women were just like Melissa. They've been on my list for years, but something is holding them back. And perhaps it's them, right? So, yes, sometimes we'll blame other things like, oh, my house is too small. The economy's not right. I don't have any money, blah, 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 right? And honestly, I say that because, having done this for 15 years, every one of those things can be overcome and has been overcome by other all-stars. But so it's not the things out there, it's the stuff in here that stops you, right? How do we get through this? And even though I've been doing Monday Motivation Lives like every single Monday for 3 years now, 3.5 years, even though wait a second, I started doing that in 2019. Holy cow, we've been doing this for probably 4 years now. Even though I've been speaking every Monday night for like 4 years on motivational topics, it's all random stuff and it's all good stuff, but it was never a framework to follow to help somebody actually achieve what they want and transform into who they're meant to be, overcome their fears along the process, and overcome the trials that came up through the way. Never before have I had this framework until now. And so, this is the thing that is going to help you, Melissa, and anyone else who's been listening. And in fact, I think I saw that Jessica said she had the same problem. She's like, yes. Jessica says, I've been following for like 7 or 8 years. I have so many ideas, but I'm so scared of putting my all and not having anybody register or want to give me a chance. I would have spent so much money I don't want to spend so much money and then have to shut down. Okay, well, friends, guess what? You're in the right place because now we have the framework. So before I tell you the framework, now let's go ahead and show you where you can get access to the podcast, because in the podcast, I dive deep into all of the steps of the framework, okay? So here's what you do. First, I want you to go to your Apple phone, your MacBook, or your iPad, any one of those 3 things, okay? Go to your Apple phone, your MacBook, or your iPad. You're going to open up the Apple Podcast app. Go ahead and click on the podcast. And there you're going to search for Bring the Mothers Home. Okay. So you're going to search for Bring the Mothers Home, and the podcast is right there. In fact, you can see it right above Preschool All Stars. But regardless, click Bring the Mothers Home. If I can get it off the light. Oh my goodness, this light. It's crazy. Come on now. Light. There you go. Bring the Mothers Home. Go ahead and click on that. That is the podcast, okay? And I want you to start from the beginning. So scroll all the way down to the bottom and get to the trailer and begin episode number 1 and start from the bottom, because every episode builds on the next. And so now that you have that's the Bring the Mothers Home podcast, and inside of that podcast, that's my container, right? But inside of the podcast is the Phoenix Journey framework that I teach. And so the Phoenix Journey framework, let me tell you what it is. So this year, for 10 years, really, honestly, I've been trying to transform, and I've been trying to go on a journey too, but I've also been holding myself back. I've been scared to do it. I've been scared to tell my friends and family. In fact, only my husband really knows, for the many, many years, like all of the struggles that I've gone on and the true things that I want to achieve. Only he knows. And I know maybe you haven't even told your spouse yet. but no one outside, right? And of course, I'm not going to speak it to my friends or family, other family members, etc., because it's just such big things that I don't want to. It's like my dream out there, and I can have this dream live inside of me. But the moment I speak it out loud, and if somebody else doesn't like it, guess what I feel like? I feel like it's killing my dream, right? But if I keep it inside of me, then my dream can live on forever, and I can still have a dream, and it will never die, and I can still have this thing that in the future I'd love to do, and it can still become this beautiful thing. But the moment I speak it out loud to another person who may have a different opinion than me, that's when we believe they can kill our dream. And so I won't speak it. I'll keep it inside of me the whole time, and I'll never share this again, because at some point in the future, I will get the courage, I'll get the confidence to be able to go chase this. But until then, I'll still live in my dream and still be excited about it, right? Do you feel that? Okay. Well, here's the truth of the matter. Dreams do not happen inside of us. Dreams are achieved outside of us, right? Like that is when we can actually transform. And we can't transform if we've got this thing inside of us that means so much and we're holding it within. We can't transform. We can't achieve that goal. We have to take the efforts to put ourselves out there, even when there might be and there will be naysayers who say otherwise. Now, here's the thing. We just have to get really good at putting the blinders on and saying, I don't care what anyone else says or thinks about this goal, as long as it is values-based and it's in alignment with my purpose and with God's will. In that regard, this is my journey, right? You say that to yourself. You say, this is my journey. This is what I have to go on in order for me to feel like I am truly doing what God wants me to do, right? We have to go on the journey. And so in that regard, we have to overcome our fears. We have to overcome the trials. But you're saying, but Joy, I don't know how. And that's the beautiful thing, is within the Phoenix Journey framework, it teaches you how. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing because it's a giant thing to go through. But the good news is I've taken it into bite-sized chunks and I've delivered it into little tiny episodes in the podcast that you can listen to once a day. Every day I deliver a new episode every morning. And it's there for you to be able to get those ahas, those, oh my gosh, now I know what step to take, how to get to the next point, how to overcome that fear. Yes, Joy said I was going to have that fear. I had the fear, but Joy said I was going to have it. Here's what Joy said, how to overcome it, right? That's the point, right? Like, I'm going to show you what's coming up for you. Once you have this dream, amazing. But once you have it, you're going to immediately walk into fear. Here's over to how to overcome those fears, right? Here's how to overcome those trials, but it's all there for you. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, because I could keep going on and on, but I've already spoken the things in a different podcast. I'm going to ask you to go over to Bring the Mothers Home podcast. Okay. And while you're there, there's going to be 5 things I'm going to ask you to do. Now, if you're like, Joy, I'm having a hard time finding this, just go to joyanderson.com. Go to joyanderson.com, and that's where you're going to be able to find all of this. Okay. So go to joyanderson.com, and at the very top, you're going to see a button that says enter the podcast contest. I want you to do that because I'm going to be adding $50,000 worth of prizes to this podcast contest today to get us to the top 50 of Apple Podcasts. Okay. So you go over to joyanderson.com and you enter into that podcast contest. And I'm going to be adding prizes today all along the way. So give me a couple hours to do that. But here's how you do that. Here's how you can help us share this message about the podcast. Here's how you can listen, all the things. Here's how you can earn more entries into the podcast contest. So once you are at the Bring the Mothers Home podcast on Apple, either your phone, your MacBook, or your iPad, most everybody's got an iPad, right? Then you're going to click the plus follow there at the top. Click plus follow at the top, and it's going to give you a little check mark. Awesome. You did it. That means that you subscribe to our show. Okay. Apple loves subscribers. If we want to get to the top ratings, if we want to get to the place where other people are going to randomly scroll and find us, we have to get ourselves to the top. And the way we do that is with subscribers. We also do that with ratings. So scroll to the bottom of the podcast. So keep scrolling to the bottom, and you're going to land on ratings and reviews. Do you see that there? Perfect. As you listen to the podcast, I hope I've earned your 5 stars. If I've helped you at all in the past 15 years, if you love the podcast, I hope I've earned your 5 stars. And you can just go ahead and click all those stars, and you just kind of do a little slide action and it'll give the 5 stars. I hope I've earned them. And then at the bottom, it says write a review. At the review stage, go ahead and click on that where it says write a review. And then you can just write a couple nice things about the podcast and then click send. So Apple loves subscribers, ratings, and reviews. And it also especially loves listeners, right? It loves listeners. And so make sure that you listen to the episodes. Start at the trailer, which is at the very bottom, and then go up to number 1, number 2, and keep going up to all the episodes. And you can binge listen to them as you go about your errands today, as you go take a walk today, as you go cook your food today, as you clean your house today, whatever you're doing, as you're just go ahead and start listening to these episodes, right? And then the last thing is to, of course, share the podcast, because in that way, we not only awesome that you get to listen to it, but what about your aunt, your sister, your friend, your neighbor, your daughter, your mother? What about all these other people that could benefit from this podcast? That's where I want you to share the podcast. And if you go to joyanderson.com and you click that button at the very top, that's where you're going to be sharing it out as well. So I'm so excited for you to be able to learn, Melissa and Jessica and everyone else who is scared to put themselves out there. Don't worry, friends. I've built you a framework so that you can walk through it. And I know that once you go through this framework, the very next step for you is to join Preschool All-Stars and to actually create your preschool and live that preschool dream. All right, friends, until then, go jump on the podcast, go listen to the Bring the Mothers Home podcast, and go to joyanderson.com. I'm going to add in a bunch of prizes today, $50,000 worth of prizes. And I can't wait to hopefully draw your name as one of the winners. We'll talk soon.